Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And throughout this week, I'm going to be doing reviews for the entire Silent Night, Deadly Night series. And today I am starting with the 1984 film Silent Night, Deadly Night. Here is your trivia question for today. What does Billy as Santa gift the young girl who discovers him? The answer will be at the end of this episode. In Silent Night, Deadly Night, our story first picks up in 1971 on Christmas Eve. We meet a family that is taking a trip to go visit their relative who is currently in an old folks' home. Now, as soon as the parents leave, Grandpa decides to tell Billy about a terrifying tale involving Santa. To make matters worse, on their way back home, this family runs into a man in a Santa Claus outfit that is having some car trouble. This particular Santa ends up being very naughty as he takes out the father and soon after the mother as well, leaving the children to fend for themselves. We then jump ahead to 1974, where at an orphanage we meet Sister Margaret, who seems very nice, and Mother Superior, who is very much a believer in punishment. Unfortunately, Billy always seems to be on the end of that punishment. We then finally jump ahead another 10 years, where Billy is fully grown and at 18 years old is getting his first job at Ira's Toys. Everything seems to be going really well here, at least until it becomes Christmas time. You see, his manager wants Billy to become their store Santa. This ends up making something snap within him, and now he's on an endless rampage of Christmas carnage. And will anyone be able to stop him? So the original title for this film was almost He Sees You When You're Sleeping, but then it was actually Sleigh Ride. However, the producers wanted to change it and it became Silent Night, Deadly Night. This movie was directed by Charles Sellier. Now, what's interesting is there was so much controversy around this film that it caused Sellier to have difficulty finding work, and he then retired from being a director and focused on producing. Some other potential directors for this film were Sam Raimi, Albert Magnoli, and Ken Kwapis. Remember how I said there was controversy connected to this film? Well, it was picketed by angry parents because of the depiction of Santa being the killer. The protest group called themselves Citizens Against Movie Madness. This movie also ended up being removed after only being in theaters for 2 weeks. What's really fascinating is the same weekend that this film came out, so did A Nightmare on Elm Street. In fact, Silent Night, Deadly Night was grossing more money before it was being pulled. Another thing that's funny is Mickey Rooney was actually one of the people who was very vocal about his displeasure for this film. The reason why that's funny is he would end up appearing in Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker. Here's something you may or may not have known, but 3 of the actors from this film would actually appear in 3 different Halloween movies: Nancy Borgenicht, Don Shanks, and Leo Getter. Borgenicht appeared in Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Shanks would appear as Michael Myers in Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. And Getter would appear in Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, which was the 6th film. The idea of having Ricky, Billy's brother, appear at the end of the film was planned out because they did have an idea for a sequel where Ricky would then take on the mantle of his brother. The orphanage used in the movie was an abandoned schoolhouse. It was actually demolished after filming. Ira's Toys was named for film producer Ira Barmack. The entire movie was filmed in Utah. The body count for this movie was 13. The first 3 were done by the Santa in the flashbacks. There was the cashier, Billy's dad, and Billy's mom. Then you have the first one that was done by Billy, which is Andy, where he strung him up with some lights. Next, there's Pamela, who is essentially gutted like a fish. Then Mr. Sims, who found out that it was hammer time. Mrs. Randall, who took an arrow to the chest. My personal favorite death of the film, Denise, who showed off her rack and then was put onto the rack of a deer head. Next, we have Tommy, who apparently needed some air as he was thrown through a window. Then we have Mac, who apparently traded a sled for his head. Following him, we have Father O'Brien, who is wrong place, wrong time. Second to last, we have Officer Barnes, who was asked a question. If you don't like my puns, blame the fact that I'm a father. Anyway, the final one on the body count is actually Billy, as he does get taken out at the end of the film. In the series, there are four other sequels and one remake. In 2021, they did start talking about doing another remake, and as of 2024, it looks like Mike P. Nelson might be the director and writer for it. You may not be aware of this, but the 2022 film Christmas Bloody Christmas was originally pitched as a Silent Night Deadly Night remake. When it comes to the film Silent Night Deadly Night, this is such a great 80s classic slasher film. If it's not part of your yearly Christmas watch list, it really should be. This movie has some great deaths, and especially they give such rich backstory to the main character of Billy. So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. If you enjoyed this one, other films I recommend checking out are Intruder, Thanksgiving, Halloween, and My Bloody Valentine. Now it's time to answer the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. What does Billy, as Santa, gift the young girl who discovers him? So, in what seems like a potentially kind moment for Billy, he has a conversation with a young girl that discovers him after he's slaughtered a few people. He then gives her what in his mind seems like a very good present, which just so happens to be a box cutter that he has clearly used for some of his activities. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's movies that you'd like to see get a review, feel free to mention them in the comments.